You know who else counts? The more than 30 million people. I don't know if it's up to 33, 34 million people across the United States have filed for unemployment since the coronavirus, since this pandemic really took hold of America. Now, this is shaping up to be one of the worst economic downturns in history. And here in the Bay Area, where we already have an affordable housing crisis, so many people are now faced with, do I make rent or do I buy groceries this month? Last week, I interviewed someone for a USA Today story who's been an incredible advocate for renters here in the Bay Area. His name is Brad Hirn. He's with the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco, HRCSF. I understand Brad, well, he was with us a few minutes ago, and hopefully he's able to join us here live. Brad, are you here?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi. Hi, Brad.
Hi.
Brad, thank you
Hi.
so much for joining us. How many people here in the Bay Area are really struggling with this issue of being able to pay rent right now?
Yes. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. This is a very important
There you,
topic. I
there
mean, I
you
think
are. Hi, Brad. Sorry, we're finally seeing each other's faces. Hi, buddy. Thank you so much for joining me. You were an
of course.
incredible resource for that national news story last week. So thank you so much for joining us.
It was
So
it
yeah,
was a great article.
tell me,
So
tell me what we're facing here.
absolutely. Um, in California, statewide, there are about 17 million tenants, um,
Wow.
and San Francisco alone is a majority tenant city. At least about two-thirds of San Francisco residents rent. So with millions of tenants already rent burdened, meaning that every month when rent is due, um, more and more of their income is going to rent, more than 30%, 50%, 75%. Um, Millions of tenants are affected, particularly unemployed tenants, but also people whose hours have been cut or have additional food or medical expenses, and are now facing those really hard choices.
So, where do people go to get help when they are faced with a hard choice? I know I spoke with one young mom last week who is faced with rent or food. What is the first thing for anybody watching this should do if they're faced with such a difficult decision?
Yeah. If you are a San Francisco tenant in any type of housing, whether it's a private rent-controlled building, public housing, Section 8, regardless, you should reach out to the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco. Our website is hrcsf.org. We have a tenant counseling line as well that is accessible by phone in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Russian. Um, Outside of San Francisco, there are also organizations in cities. Oakland, for example, has the Oakland Tenants Union, and Casa Justa Just Cause. Alameda, the city of Alameda, where I used to live, has the Alameda Renters Coalition. Berkeley has the Berkeley Tenants Union. That's where I live now. And then there's Tenants Together. So if you're in a city in the Bay Area and you don't think you have a tenants' rights group, there is a statewide organization for tenants called Tenants Together. They have a free hotline for tenants to call with trained counselors in English and Spanish who can also answer questions. And their number is 888-495-8020 at tenantstogether.org.
And I should mention that we will make all of these resources available to people after today's show as well. Brad, another quick question for you here. Um, I was a renter here in the Bay Area for more than 25 years, and I was constantly afraid of doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing. If things were broken in the home I rented, I often was not able to get them fixed. I felt very much, I felt very scared a lot of the time. And here I am in a very middle class world and family, and it's hard for me to fathom what so many other people are going through. But I know from
Mhm.
talking with you last week that people have been served eviction notices. People have been threatened by landlords. What's the most important thing for people to know if or when that's coming up right now?
Sure. Well, in addition, kind of the first thing after people understand their rights as an individual tenant is also banding together with their neighbors. And this could be in a building if you're in a multifamily building. This could be on your block if your own particular building is smaller, like a duplex, or even if you rent in a single family home. But part of our mission is also about organizing tenants and making sure that tenants feel that they have a voice together. And we do believe tenants have a voice together and that they're stronger together. We help tenants organize what we call tenant associations, which are groups of tenants that can negotiate with their owner on any variety of issues. And we've also tried to make sure that there are legal protections in place for tenants who choose to organize and can do so safely. We believe should be a basic right, and that tenants should be able to do so freely and without retaliation.
So, what is one of the maybe protests that you have going on right now? How are tenants able to come together and work for their rights right now?
Yeah, with
I mean,
the
especially
shelter in
with shelter
place.
in place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. With the shelter in place orders, we've gotten creative beyond just online petitions. Online petitions were, of course, popular before shelter in place and even more so now. But we also started to do photo petitions. And we wanted to show visible support for tenants' rights and for the goals that tenants have. This is an example of the photo petition that tenants that we work with have put together in just a few weeks that was sent to elected officials, including Governor Newsom. We've been calling on Governor Newsom to provide more relief for tenants and small landlords and homeowners through mortgage and rent cancellation. We think the two should go hand in hand. It doesn't make sense to do one but not the other. And so the photo petitions are one way to do that. And we've also been collecting them from tenants throughout California. So any tenant, homeowner, small landlord who is concerned about the mortgage or rent, we encourage a selfie with a sign as a first step to connect to a bigger movement.
That's incredible. Do you think that we'll have a change in the Bay Area housing crisis as a result of this pandemic? Or do you think we'll see what happened last time during the recession when people came in and snatched up undervalued property and turned it around and started renting it out for more? What do you think will happen after this?
That is a great question. And we are looking ahead to that possibility. Part of the organizing that I personally do with tenants under very large corporate landlords in San Francisco is to begin to have those conversations with tenants so that they can possibly begin to have them with their landlords. We would like to see protections in place so that public funds can go to the acquisition of properties by community land trusts. That's actually something that may be on the ballot in San Francisco this November. But we think that public funds should be going to those acquisitions so that more properties can be taken off the private market and they can be managed by nonprofits, land trusts, and maybe even the tenants themselves.
I love that. You've given us so much hope for the renters out there who are struggling to make ends meet, for folks who can find ways to band together. Brad, how are you getting through this great pause yourself right now? And by the way, I know you told me calls went from maybe 5,000 a year to 10,000 or so a month into the housing committee. So how are you getting through all of this?
Yeah, it's become, I think for many of us in the tenants' rights world, it's become like an even busier time. And there's the blurring of lines between work and home, of course. I'm able to work from home, but many tenants are still going to work or are unemployed or working or trying to work from home themselves. I think personally, just the conversations with tenants that we have through Zoom and on the phone, those do actually keep me going. And being able to meet with tenants still and help people organize is a very heartening thing. It's a very inspiring thing.
Okay, anything else you want to make sure that people know as we struggle through? Oh, I know. I did have one other question that I want to ask you, Brad. And that is, why can't, somebody asked me this question the other day, and I said, oh, I'm going to ask Brad that question. Why can't all of these big landlords in San Francisco say, hey, don't worry about rent for the next 3 months. And if they have mortgages they have to pay, then the mortgage folks say, don't worry about paying your mortgage for 3 months, or tack everything on to the end of the engagement. Why are we not seeing more of this as a way to get through this as a community together? What's the big sticking point here?
Absolutely. That's actually something that I'm actively organizing around with tenants under San Francisco's largest landlord, Veritas Investments, who have bought properties in Oakland, the city of Alameda, and LA as well. We have called publicly on Veritas to forgive rents during shelter in place. They absolutely could afford to do it. And they've taken leadership in the past on other issues, and we think that they should take leadership at this time. So the large firms that have been doing very well for years can definitely afford to do it, and we hope that they set that example, Veritas included.
Well, you have really given me faith that there is hope out there for people who need it the most. Brad Hirn, HRCSF, an incredible resource. Can't not thank you enough for being here with us this week. Thank you.
Thank, thank you so much, Jen.